Добре дојдовте. Следите неделно интервју на Радио Слободна Европа. Наш денешен гостин е мој колега од Грција, новинар со долгогодишно искуство и исто така историчар, господинот Тасос Костопулос. Mr. Kostopoulos, how the Greek public react or perceive the work of the Macedonian Greek Committee or Commission for Historical and Educational Issues? The work of this committee was presented in Macedonian public as part of the wider process of achieving a climate of trust between the both countries. What is your impression, and do you think that this goal can be achieved?
Concerning the first part of your question, the work of the committee has not been an object of public debate, of much public debate in Greece. There have been, initially there were some negative reactions from national circles, how they will change also our textbooks, this kind of questions, but in general there is no discussion about what happens there. And after, as you know, the Prespa agreement met the point on mostly on ancient Macedonian history, acknowledged more or less as a part of Greek, the Greek one. So what the public, the more articulate part of the public waits, is this separation of Macedonian national history from ancient Macedonian history. As far as the other parts of the school textbooks is concerned, I think that those who deal with it or who think about it, because it's not the main point of discussion now in Greece concerning the Prespa agreement and its implementation, I think they wait this kind of mutual trust. But okay, it's not an easy thing to merge two different historical narratives. You have to respect parts of each other narrative. At the same time, you have to put out, to erase some whatever exists there that produces national enmity.
But now the Macedonian Greek Committee works. They have their sessions at the beginning, as far as we know from the information, that the Greek side asked to be removed materials that contain irredentism from the history books. According to you, what are those elements? What is irredentism according to your opinion, to the Greek public?
First of all, I must clarify that I'm not a member of the Commission, so what I have heard is second-hand. I have no personal idea of what's going on. Concerning the public debate in the public discourse on the Macedonian question, what is considered irredentism, the main point of contention is this well-known map of Macedonian ethnic and historical granici, borders, that has this map of the whole and undivided Macedonia, the so-called one, that has never been a state in modern times of these borders, within these borders, that is considered as a direct or indirect demand over Greek territories. This, I think, it will be asked to be removed. But also, there is a discussion in Greece going on, what is irredentism, Macedonian irredentism towards Greece. There is a perception, from more or less from nationalists, that even the Macedonian national identity constitutes some kind of irredentism because it goes over the Greek Macedonian identity, and also Greek dominance over southern Macedonia.
What about the civil war in Greece and the Balkan Wars also? There were a lot of reaction. I suppose you remember on Tsipras' speech in the Greek parliament when he mentioned to the members of the Communist Party, yes, Mirka Ginova and all the activities that this party was doing in the past. Do you expect that maybe the committee will find a common language on the civil war in Greece on this topic?
Tsipras' speech was really reflected the mood of the progressive half of Greece. I mean, there is a fact, and the progressive historians and dissent with the national narrative emphasizes these points. It's the fact of the Macedonian Slav minority that existed and somehow still exists, but its identity is a matter of discussion because what has remained is it's divided between Greek nationalists and what we can term as an ethnic group, not very obviously national, but it's a fact, existing even today. And it's always history of its repression since the beginning of the 20th century, linguistic repression, national repression, and the fact that this minority allied itself with the communist guerrilla in order to have a place in and to achieve its emancipation as a national minority within a left-wing socialist Greece. And there is the fact that those political refugees were refused entry to come back, and there was a pressure from a part of the public and historical community for this, for their free repatriation, if they want, because it was a real racist measure to exclude them on the basis of their non-Greek origin. And this is a strong debate. And here I think that I doubt if there can be resistance to this discussion of a common. It's more easy to find a common ground, I guess. Of course, if the Macedonian side does not put this in a reductist way, that means our national rights on the Aegean Macedonia. If it's in a modern approach is done, I think it's more easy to have a discussion on that.
Let's speak about something actual, that's the Prespa agreement, we mentioned it already. How do you evaluate this agreement between the both countries? Do you think that the both countries get more than they lose with this, with the signing of this agreement?
That's my opinion. I'm definitely definitely in favor of the Prespa agreement. I was at first in favor of an agreement in general. That means I think that this dispute should not exist at first time. I think it was mostly because of the Mitsotakis government of the early 90s internal agenda to use nationalism as a vehicle of keeping its hegemony within Greek society that was disputing his economic policies in the 90s, that the Macedonian question was put in the forefront. Okay, there may have been some kind of differences. It was a matter of how to deal with a new country, but it could have been done not in the way it was promoted. I think that there is a need of cooperation and of accord. I think that the Prespa agreement actually secured what is a minimum of demands from both sides. I mean, the Macedonian language acknowledged as such. There is no other Macedonian language, but there are two Macedonians, northern and southern, of course. So I think, and I think also that a big part of the Greek public saw it gradually as in a positive way.
Do you think, Mr. Kostopoulos, that if is eventual change of the power in Greece, of the government, let's say if on the next elections the Nea Demokratia wins, can this cause consequences on the implementation of the Prespa agreement?
I think that Nea Demokratia will have a problem to turn back the Prespa agreement. I think because as
It's a done deal.
As Mr. Takis has said, there is a continuity of the state, so we have to accept it. Of course, we may wait. We must be ready for smaller crisis, maybe on the level of these bilateral commissions, etc. But I think it will be very difficult for them to go against the agreement. They have a problem because they also used nationalism as a vehicle. They legitimized nationalist voices during the last 2 years, giving them a legitimacy mostly through the private TV channels that are close to New Democracy, and they will have a problem how to deal with this. But I think that already they're trying to take it back. I think. Of course, it's not an easy thing.
Do you think that the Prespa agreement maybe influenced the electoral results on the recently conducted European Parliament elections?
We cannot be sure. I don't think that influenced it very much. The defeat of Syriza in the European elections, that is very clear, it had a margin of 10%, nearly 10%, was due mostly to its economic policies. I mean, to its capitulation in 2015, to the European Commission's demands, and the third bailout agreement that had serious, continued to have serious consequences for a part of the Greek public. It was not. It was less bad than the previous two. Its consequences were less catastrophic, but it was. It's still a very harsh economic program.
Thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you.
Вам, почитувани, ви благодарам за вниманието со кое не следевте. Се гледаме за една недела.